Well, students of Coburg Charter School chanting USA as the South Willamette Valley Honor Flight Motor Brigade drove through Coburg this afternoon. Eugene police helped lead that group through the area, followed by multiple cars. Dozens of veterans are heading to Portland Airport for the annual honor flight. Now, for the last decade, KVAL has honored our veterans by providing exclusive coverage of the South Willamette Valley Honor Flight's trip to Washington, D.C. Dozens of military veterans from our area spend 3 days in our nation's capital, visiting monuments, museums, and national landmarks. KVAL's Brandon Kamerman has spent the last couple years covering this extraordinary trip. He's joining us live now from Portland ahead of this weekend's journey. Brandon, how's it going?
Well, Kendall, we are just gathering, like you said, in Portland. We have dinner tonight, and then the flight leaves early tomorrow morning. Direct flight from Portland to Washington, D.C. Just getting a feel for this group. They just went through the registration process. Some still kind of filing in, but we're about to eat dinner. But let me give you a look, early look at this group right now that is still filing in. And it's really a group of about 4 or 5 dozen veterans from around our area. We have veterans from all different branches, from different parts of our viewing area, men, women. It goes from Vietnam War and older. You can see some of them here. Everybody say, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom." Always a good group, and always interesting to see everybody come together and see how the group kind of melds together, each with different stories. And that's really what I'm going to do in our next few days here as we embed with the honor flight. We're going to just try to get a feel for their stories. I like to just talk to them and hear what they're thinking, because it brings out different emotions when we go back to Washington, D.C. Tonight's dinner, though, is pretty special. A couple speakers, and then this table up here is for POWs and MIAs, and each item on the table actually represents something different. You see that single red rose reminds us of the lives of these Americans, the loved ones and friends who keep the faith. You see that slice of lemon, the bitter fate. That's what it represents, captured or missing in a foreign land. There's a pinch of salt there that symbolizes the tears of the missing and their families. All sorts of special recognitions that we get on this flight, like this POW and MIA table right here. But as I mentioned, it's about usually around 60 different veterans from different branches, from different experiences, and different parts of our viewing area. I had the fortune of getting to meet with a couple of the veterans that will be on this trip ahead of the flight to get a feel for their story and hear, what they had to say. One of those is Kathy Gunson. She's a former Army nurse who served 1 year in Vietnam. Her story was absolutely incredible. Her personality is just captivating, and she just is an amazing storyteller. And so here is her story.
People that say they wish they'd gone to war.
That's Kathy Gunson.
I'm sorry, video games aren't quite like war, or, yeah.
Direct and to the point.
So they're idiots.
Mother, educator, Vietnam War veteran.
That experience created in me a strong woman who is willing to take risks.
Like volunteering to serve as a nurse in Vietnam in the middle of war.
I wanted to go take care of the wounded, the injured, and the sick. That's what I wanted to do.
You wanted to help?
Yes. Oh yeah, most definitely.
And while helping others, she changed herself.
I became a very strong woman. I have a very strong backbone. I put up with nothing. I go towards danger. I don't run from it.
And danger is what she found right away.
My first assignment was to take a pair of Band-Aid scissors and finish cutting off a lower leg. And that leg had its boot, its sock, black hairs on it, and bits of the uniform in the upper part of the amputation. That was my very first job.
There are no words to describe what Kathy experienced in 1 year in Vietnam.
You have to be there. There is no way to explain what goes on. because it affects every sense in your body. Hearing, sight, nose, taste.
She can still taste it and hear it and smell it. It changed her senses and her sense of life.
I've made choices that have, as an adult, that have been at times very painful, but you learn to adapt and you learn from that pain. And then you put it away. Because like the Vietnamese say, that was yesterday, this is today, we don't know what tomorrow brings.
Danger, laughter, pain. Whatever tomorrow brings, Kathy Gunson will stand tall and face it with all her strength.
I call everything an adventure and a new chapter in your book, regardless of how awful it is. It is a new chapter in your book.
Kathy's book, direct and to the point. Now, Kathy told me she's so looking forward to this trip, another chapter in that book. Her daughter is here with her as her volunteer guardian, so she said she's interested to see how her daughter reacts to this trip and how it impacts Kathy. And again, maybe she might learn some things about her mom. Trip's nonstop, so keep it here with KVAL throughout, either on broadcast, online, or on our social media channels. Just follow at KVAL News. Covering the Honor Flight live in Portland, Brandon Kamerman. Kendall, let's go back to you.
KVAL's Brandon Kamerman has spent the last couple years covering this extraordinary trip. He joins us live from Portland ahead of this weekend's journey. Brandon, what a trip you have planned ahead of you.
Always an adventure, Kendall. And yeah, we leave early tomorrow morning, a direct flight from Portland to Washington, D.C. As you mentioned, I've been doing this a couple of years. This is my 5th honor flight with the South Willamette Valley Honor Flight. Of course, legendary news anchor David Walker did it for years before. But one man has been with South Willamette Valley Honor Flight since it began, current board chair and the founder, Mike Pundercar. Mike, thanks so much. How does it feel to be doing this once again?
It's just as exciting now as it was 12 years ago, so I'm just glad to be part of it yet.
And you started this in 2012, am I right? Tell me a little bit about how this came to be. What was the thought process behind it? How did you make it go from thought to actually happening?
Well, this whole thing started with my dad being a World War II veteran, and he shared his story late in life with me about the things he had done as a radio operator on a B-17, and I was doing research and trying to write his story and the story of the air war over Europe, and I met a veteran in Wisconsin that said, "Have you heard of the Honor Flight program?" I hadn't, but when I got my book published in fall of 2011, I ended up looking at the state of Oregon. I said, there's got to be Honor Flight here somewhere. Met a woman down in Grants Pass, Gail Jakobotz, who had started Honor Flight in Oregon, and I was just going to help her raise money up in this area, and she talked me into starting my own hub. So I took Lane, Lynn, Lincoln, and Benton counties out of the middle of her area of the state and got all the paperwork, and in March of 12 got our charter for South Willamette Valley Honor Flight, and we took our first group in October of 2012, and we're still going strong now in 2024.
12 years later, what's the experience been like for you? And you know, to be doing this for 12 years, how does that feel for you?
It's actually got some highs and lows. On the low standpoint, the first 500 veterans or so we took were all World War II veterans like my dad. And last year was the first year we had no World War II veterans on our honor flight, and we have none on this trip either. The oldest veterans we have, I think, are about 94, and it's a Korean War veteran. So to have lost a lot of friends in the last 12 years has been a difficult part. But to finally be with our Vietnam era veterans now, and I've got 2 stepbrothers that served, and I know how they were treated when they came back home. And to see what happens with these veterans on their honor flight after all these years, to finally be thanked for serving their country, it's got my heart in it. That's why I still do it.
Well, we thank you for doing it, and we thank you for letting us be a part of it, because it's been an incredible journey for us. And as I mentioned, my 5th honor flight, David Walker, before obviously you had a great relationship with David. Any quick memories of David Walker on the honor flight?
I always enjoyed traveling with David and Lauren, and not only the time on the honor flight, and they were so good about what they were doing. A lot of times while I was leading groups, I wasn't even aware they were around doing their work. But we had a lot of fun later in the evening sometime when everybody else was in bed, as we gathered for a few refreshments and sharing stories and memories. We had a good time together. It was fun.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate you joining us.
Glad
and
you're with us now.
I am loving it. And like you mentioned, the stories that you have had here and the stories of all these veterans, we're going to continue to follow it for the next few days. I'm going to try to gather as many of the stories as I can and report it back to you. Live in Portland for the Honor Flight, Brandon Kamerman. Let's go back to you.